Good evening. Welcome to the regular scheduled monthly meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. That's okay. Happy New Year. The Board of Zoning Appeal members are volunteers and receive no compensation. We are appointed by the City Commission for staggered 3-year terms. Under state statutes, the BZA hears 3 types of appeals: dimensional or non-use variances, including sign variances, use variances, and appeals of interpretation or rulings of building officials or other boards regarding provisions of the zoning ordinance. Tonight, we have 3 dimensional variance requests. In a dimensional or non-use variance, the appellant must show a practical difficulty complying with the dimensional requirements of the ordinance. It requires 4 affirmative votes, and as I mentioned, all 3 appeals tonight are dimensional. Our procedure is all comments are to be addressed to the chair, and please wait to be recognized. City staff will make a presentation regarding the appeal and take questions from the board members. The appellant is then invited to present their case. Only one person may speak on any particular appeal, and exceptions can be granted by me if there is some technical information from an architect or engineer. Members of the public are then invited to come forward in person or by Zoom and provide their comments to the board. The hearing is then closed, and motions from the board are entertained and acted upon. In all cases, this is not a popularity contest. Granting or denying a variance is based substantially on the appellant meeting their burden of proof. If you are participating by Zoom, you can use the *9 feature. If you're calling by phone, you can use the raise hand feature to identify that you would like to speak. You will be unmuted and have an opportunity to speak. Please let us know where you would be Zooming or calling from, and then we will hear your comments. Okay, please call the roll of the board members. Our secretary.
Can you all hear me?
We can hear you just fine, thank you. Laura, could you call the roll when you're ready?
I am not able to hear you, so I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
Oh.
Thanks, Ron.
Since Laura takes notes for the meetings, we have to have her involved.
I think I can do roll call.
Okay.
Kevin Hart,
Here.
Pierre Yaldo,
Here.
Eric Morganroth,
Here.
Jason Canvasser,
Here.
Dick Lilly,
Here.
Ron Reddy.
Here. We have 6 board members tonight. That means to have your appeal, you would need 4 out of 6. The appellants. So do we have someone here for 732 Westchester? Thank you. Do we have someone here for 1817 Sheffield? Thank you. Do we have someone here for 550 Henley?
Indeed.
Thank you. I think I saw one correspondence, so maybe I didn't. Are there any correspondence that,
There's not.
thank you, sir. Gentlemen, before you, we have the meetings from our last regularly scheduled meeting, last year we'll call it. Any amendments to the meeting notes? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve? Mr. Lilly, have a second?
Second.
Mr. Yaldo, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So the meeting notes from last month are approved. Should we wait for Laura to start, Bruce?
No, we can continue.
Because we're recording regardless?
Yes.
Okay. We'll hear our first appeal, appeal number 24-30 for 732 Westchester Way. Mr. Zilke's presenting.
Jeff Zilke here to present case 24-30. Property known as 732 Westchester Way requests the following variance to construct the front and second floor addition to the existing non-conforming home. Chapter 126, Article 2, Section 2.06.2 of the zoning ordinance requires that the front yard setback is the average of homes within 200 feet in each direction. The required is 33.20 feet. The existing and proposed is 32.34 feet. Therefore, a variance of .86 feet is being requested. Variance B, Chapter 126, Article 4, Section 4.75A1 of the zoning ordinance requires that private attached garages must be set back a minimum of 5 feet from the portion of the front facade of the first floor of the principal residential building that is furthest set back from the front property line. The existing facade is 10.15 feet behind the garage. The proposed is 5.09 feet behind the garage. Therefore, a variance of 10.09 feet is being requested. The applicant is seeking to construct a front and second floor addition to the existing non-conforming home that was built in 1960. And for variance A, it's the required front yard setback. It's not non-conforming, so they're asking for the .86 feet. To kind of explain, we zoom in a little bit more in this, the garage, the front addition of the garage, the existing house is in gray, the addition is in this blue. It's coming forward, so the existing part of the house is further back of the garage, and then the new proposed addition is further forward, so a garage has to be 5 feet behind the front portion of the facade. The addition's coming forward, so they're mitigated the variance, but it still needs a variance because the garage isn't behind that front portion of the garage, or the facade. Any questions?
So basically, the first request is an existing non-conforming and isn't really changing much. What did you say was the minor difference? Because the numbers aren't exactly existing and proposed, right?
So the required is 33.2, so
Right.
it's existing non-conforming. So the existing house and the proposed, the garage is at that point at the 32.34 feet. So it's existing and proposed, it's .86 feet out of compliance. That's the existing portion of the garage wall that's sitting here.
Okay.
So it's the same, it's existing and non-conforming, but they're going up, so that point, that 8.6, since it's going up, it's falling in the existing non-conforming in the front of it. So this part of the existing house, they're building an addition in front, so it's actually mitigating the garage not being behind 5 feet of the front facade, but still, nonetheless, it's still 5.09 feet. Garage is in front of it, so then it's required to be 10.09 feet to be conforming.
Right, so the current garage position is so much further forward than the face of the house that adding that addition actually minimizes that nonconformity, even though it's still not conforming.
Correct, and still for a need for a variance.
Very good. Questions for Mr. Zilke? Seeing none from the board members, who's coming to speak on this case, please? If you could just say your name, your address, and then tell us why you believe this variance is justified.
Sure. Robin Ballou, I'm the architect for the homeowners. I'm in Troy, Michigan, 6523 Tamarack in Troy.
Thank you.
In working with this client, they purchased this home a few months ago. We knew that it was going to be a challenging design because of the nature of the old ordinance allowed for garages to be forward-facing like this. So we did the best we could in trying to mitigate the details to bring it more into conformity. So if you look at the renderings, I don't know if you can pan up a little bit, Jeff, to the top of this page. You'll see that we still have the garage in the front. To become in compliance, we would have had to move the house face 5 feet in front of the garage, which would put us over 5 feet over the front yard setback, which obviously we can't do that. So we brought it as far forward as we could. We extended the porch out as far as we could within the ordinance to try and mitigate the appearance between the face of the garage and the face of the house. We also, the existing garage has a 16-foot garage door, which we could have maintained typically we could have left that in place, but we talked with the homeowner and we're like, it'd really be appealing, I think, to the city to show that we're offering, splitting the garage to bring that into the ordinance, even though I think it's not required in an existing non-conforming nature like this. So we are trying to, bring as many things into compliance as possible, understanding that we can't, physically move the garage that's already there. We're just kind of building on top of that. So we feel like it's the best option that we could come up with that would be, as conforming as possible without, tearing the house down completely.
Very good. Questions for the appellant? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
In the audience or by Zoom, is there anybody who has any comments about this particular appeal? Seeing nothing on Zoom, nothing in our live audience here, so we will close public comment. Board members? Please.
Mr. Chairman? Yes, I'd like to make a motion with regards to property known as 732 Westchester Way, appeal number 24-30. With regards to both A and B, I would make a motion to approve both as tied to the plans. This is a pre-existing non-conforming home dating to 1960. I think the appellee has laid out a good case as to, with regards to the, particularly with point A with 0.86 on a pre-existing non-conforming home for the setback. And in addition, the fact that they want to do renovation and they're sort of bound by the footprint of the house within a home that was created in 1960. I think that this is a reasonable ask. I think that if we were to not grant the motion, it would unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property. I think it would result in unnecessary hardship, and for those reasons, as I said earlier, tied to the plans, I make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second from Mr. Lilly. Any comments from the board members? Please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be supporting this motion as well. The appellant has done an exceptional job, I think, of even adding, and I really appreciate the 16-foot door going away. That's one of the key elements of this house. It was not a requirement, but that was an added mitigation along with the improving the distance from the garage to the main facade. I think that's a great effort there. The house is very attractive. It's built on top of the existing, and for that reason, I will be supporting the motion.
Very good. Any other comments about the appeal? Or, excuse me, the motion? Seeing none, Laura, can you call the roll? The motion is to approve on case number 24-30.
Sorry for the technical difficulties earlier. Ron Reddy,
Yes.
Richard Lilly,
Yes.
Eric Augerbach,
Yes?
Peter Aldo,
Yes.
Jason Canvaser,
Yes.
Kevin Hart.
Yes.
Congratulations, you have your variance. Good luck.
And with that, I'll announce that Carl Kona has arrived, and that was, I think, a fatality on our part. I think we failed to notify him that as the alternate, he was needed. Right when we start.
Well, that's an advantage to the next two appeals.
And he made it.
Even better.
Welcome, Carl. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
So for the two appeals that have not been completed, you now need 4 out of 7, so you've just increased your odds. So our next appeal is case number 24-31 for 1817 Sheffield, and Mr. Zilke is presenting.
Jeff Zilke here to present case 24-31, property known as 1817 Sheffield. Request the following variance to construct the rear addition, a bay window, and a front porch to an existing non-conforming home. Chapter 126, Article 4, Section 4.61A 1 of the zoning ordinance requires that corner lots which has on a side street abutting an interior residential lot that has a minimum setback, so it's going to be a little bit long, setback on the side street equal to the minimum front yard setback in the zoning district in which the building is located. The required is not to reduce the building envelope to the width of 25 feet, being on the corner lot. The side setback requirement to maintain 25 feet, the 25-foot rule is 16.25 feet. The existing and proposed is 14.30 feet, therefore a variance of 1.95 feet is being requested. Variance B, as stated earlier in variance A, chapter 126, being on the corner lot, the 25-foot rule, and I can explain a little bit more in a minute. Chapter 126, Article 4, Section 4.61A of zoning ordinance requires a street side yard setback is 16.25 feet. The proposed second floor boxed out bay has a proposed setback of 13 feet. Therefore, a variance of 3.25 feet is being requested. In variance C, as also stated in variance A, the 25-foot rule, Article 20, Chapter 26, Article 4, Section 4.61A1 of the zoning ordinance requires a street side setback is 16.25 feet. The proposed front porch has a proposed setback of 15.50 feet, therefore a variance of 0.75 feet is being requested. This applicant was in front of the board back in 1998. Similar variances requested back then, so let me explain. So first, going back to the 25-foot rule, corner lot, you can't reduce a building envelope less than 25 feet, so that's where that side yard setback comes down to the 16.25 feet to be able to gain that 25-foot building envelope. So that's where all these variances kind of fell into play. So the existing house is at 14.3 feet, and the rear addition, there's actually an upper addition on it. They're just filling in underneath, so there's the requirement for that so variance B filling in the addition underneath. And then the box out bay, which is in variance B, variance A is filling in the bottom. Boxed out, the variance B is the boxed out bay. There is a bay projection out there now. They're squaring it up. So that with changing that, that's requiring that boxed out bay for that variance of the 3.25 feet. And then the front porch, same thing kind of follows. The front porch is at 15.5 feet for the proposed. They're putting the front porch on the front. It's supposed to be at the 16.25 feet. That little sliver of the front porch is going in that side yard of the 0.75 foot that's being requested. And I know the...
So Jeff, is the new front porch getting wider, or is this an existing non-conforming width?
The new front porch is getting wider. They're going into that, so you can't reduce the building envelope to less than 25 feet. So with that front porch, it's going out, so it's the 0.75 foot because it's encroaching on that setback line. And it's just that little sliver in yellow of the encroachment. And
Is that little sliver part of the 25 feet?
so the 25-foot line
Is the dotted line?
the dotted line, and the existing house sits out here for the 1.9 feet, 1.95 foot, because it's filling in the bottom underneath. Let me go to the picture so you get a little bit more of a visual. So here's the current existing front porch. And the existing house actually sits out there, still the same variance that was granted in 98. They're proposing to fill in underneath, and then taking this angled bay up top, squaring it up with the change in that gets you to the 3.25 feet for the bay window on variance B. Variance A, the 1.95 feet is within filling in the lower half underneath for space, and then variance C is the front porch of the 0.75 feet projecting in that side yard.
Very good.
Any questions?
Any questions? Please.
Mr. Zilke, the previous variance from 98, I see the dimensions, but there's no pictures to show what was actually being changed. And it appears that they moved, it was existing 14.2 feet and they moved it to 12.3 feet. And is this what they're filling in now? So they pushed out over the porch, and now they're filling in below it?
The boxed out bay is at the 13 feet, and it's staying the same. I think it's coming back a little bit. I'll let the appellant speak. I think it's shrinking in a little bit from the existing, but still being wider, and that's the 3.25 feet, because they're making it wider. They're squaring it up and getting rid of the angled portion of that new look to it. And then underneath is filling in right underneath was the variance that was before at the 1.95 feet that was required. So it's just filling in, modifying, adding to what's existing. It's not changing the footprint, other than the bay windows coming in a tad bit. And then the front porch is just coming out to follow that line a little bit. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Hart?
Yes, Mr. Zilke, the front face of the box bay, the proposed is actually moving back slightly
Slightly back.
away from, and the same with the bay below that's infilling underneath it. It's,
They're going to be right in line with the
They're
bay
in line.
below, because that's
Right.
1.95 feet, and that bay up top, that's where the 3.25 feet
got
is
it, understood.
falling into play.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Riddick?
Mr. Zilke, could you explain the language a little bit in variance A? The part that's a bit confusing for me is corner lot with abutting interior residential lot. So that would apply probably to both Croft and Sheffield Street. But I don't understand why that language is in the variance, because it doesn't seem to matter with regards to, could you explain that piece? I don't get that piece.
Sure. So on corner lots, the way the ordinance says, because on corner lots, you're 15 feet for total side yard setbacks. So some of these lots on corner lots that, the distance between, with some of the ordinance, the way it falls in, you can't reduce the building envelope to less than 25 feet. So that's kind of the rule. So the building envelope, you can't make a house smaller than 25 feet. So you're guaranteed on a lot to be at 25 feet. You still got to maintain the distance between the structures from neighboring property. So, let's say for argument's sake, the minimum's 5-foot side yard setback. Then if you're going into that, you're going 25 feet, so you're 30 foot, and then the balance would be that becomes your side yard to the corner lot on the side street. Kind of a lot. I think maybe Bruce
Okay.
might be able to
All right. No,
clarify
that's-
a little bit more. But
Okay.
So you can reduce the front yard setback or the side yard setback, even though it's a minimum of 5, to achieve the 25 minimum. So if the setbacks make the envelope smaller than 25, you're still allowed to have 25.
Okay, fair. I think that clarifies it. Thank you.
Mr. Zucchi, so this filling in of the bay below, the bay is currently cantilevered, so they don't have to fill in the bay right below?
no, they're not. The bay is going to stick out. It's still up there. They're just redoing the face. They're making it a little bit bigger, shrinking it in. But underneath, they're actually filling that addition that's underneath where that pillar's at.
Oh, so they're not filling in the bay, they're only filling in
They're
the
filling in
porch.
underneath, but they're modifying that bay, squaring it up, giving it a different look from the 1998 look.
But are they filling in the bay all the way down so the bay is a 2-story bay?
No.
A 2-story box out?
No, it's still going to be up high.
Okay.
And I know a different look with some gussets, which I'll let the,
Yeah. Or some brackets under it or something.
Sure.
Very good. Any other questions for Mr. Zucchi? Hearing none? Who's coming to speak on this appeal?
Good evening, Glenda Meads, the architect for Dr. and Mrs. Frizo, and she's here today as well.
Could you give us your business address too, please?
114 South Old Woodward, Suite 5, Birmingham. Part of the confusion, I think, maybe on your question is that this was a second-floor addition back in 1998, and it sits on that column. At that time, for some reason, it was not picked up, this side yard setback. That second-floor addition was granted like a 14-foot variance to be able to build that. They didn't pick up at the time that 25-foot exception in the ordinance. So the language, I think I copied the minutes in there, refer to a 14-foot setback variance back then to build this second story. When we look at it, with today's ordinance that permits you to have a 25-foot building, it's really, both that second story is really only non-conforming 1.95 feet. We're filling that in flush all the way down where you see the columns there, and that's the 1.95 feet permitted with this 25-foot relief provision in the ordinance. Then we're just rescaping that bay above. It'll be rectangular. It'll just be a second-floor bay. I'll have little brackets holding it up, and really the detailing and the trim on this whole house are going to be also upgraded. So really all of the variances stem from, I mean, that first drawing shows where the angle of the Croft Road setbacks would require this house to be. It'd be like a 10-foot building. It's just over. There's the side bay.
Oh, yeah, this is.
There we go. The Croft Road setback averages of those adjacent interior lots is over there, almost at the back of the garage. It's sort of that light line way over here. Thank you. That's the setback averages of the houses on Croft. The 25-foot, exception in the ordinance going from the house is meant to deal with this kind of corner application. So the 25 feet that's permitted by ordinance, like, your buildable lot can't be reduced to less than 25 feet, is the dashed line out here. Filling in that existing ground floor is the first bar of yellow, 1.95 feet. Will just fill into the existing second floor. Then the bay is sticking out less than the angled bay was, and it's only on the second floor. And then the front porch kind of has a gable this way, and it's actually wider than that one. The gable runs water in a bad direction. The best way for practical front porch water coverage is the rectangular porch we're seeing that needs 9 inches from that 25-foot relief measure in the ordinance. So if you have any other questions. So it was granted at like 14 feet way back when, but technically should be 1.95.
Right.
So can you describe for the minutes the reason why you couldn't inset the 1.9 so you didn't need that variance? I mean, you'd still need an existing non-conforming variance, but
Right.
is there a reason why you couldn't just step it in 1.9?
So the way this house works, there are side steps that come in off of Croft. I probably see them here. If we push that in the 1.95, they'd be impinging the existing steps that come up into the house. So the line of that to really accomplish an updated kitchen and laundry room in this house needs to not impinge on those steps.
Thank you.
And functionally line up with there's a full footing underneath that open space.
Right. Other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation.
Okay, thank you.
In the audience, in this room or on Zoom, anyone have any particular comments about this appeal that is not affiliated with this appeal? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Board members. Mr. Hart.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, with regards to the address of 1817 Sheffield, case number 2431, I'd like to make a motion to approve all 3 conditions, A, B, and C. I think the appellant has done a very good job of explaining the unique circumstances on this property. Special conditions that apply to the property are tough no matter how you look at it. I think the approval will not adversely affect any neighboring properties, and it'll provide substantial justice to the owner and to the neighboring properties. It would cause a very big hardship to move structures inbound to conform on some of the smaller sections, and I think that within reason, I think this is a very good solution. It is not contrary to the spirit and the purpose of the zoning ordinance, and it is not contrary to public health, safety, and welfare. And again, I think this will be substantial justice to the neighboring properties as well as the owner. So, and I'd like to tie the approval to the documents and drawings that were provided.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second. Second. I saw Mr. Willie's hand. Any comments about this particular motion? Seeing none, we have a motion to approve Appeal 24-31 for all A, B, and C, I believe it was. Can we please call the roll?
Kevin Hart,
Yes.
Richard Lilly,
Yes.
Eric Morgenthau,
Yes?
Ron Ready,
Yes.
Peter Yaldo,
Yes.
Carl Connor,
Yes.
Jason Davidson.
Yes.
Laura, I'm just confirming, was that an A and B or an A, B, and C?
I heard A, B, and C.
Let's see if that's
A,
accurate.
B, and C is.
A, B, and C, very good. All right. Congratulations, you have your variance. Our next appeal is case 2432 for 550 Henley. And Mr. Zilke, as always, is up.
Jeff Zilke here to present case 24-32, property known as 550 Henley. Request the following variance to construct an addition to the existing non-conforming home. Chapter 126, Article 2, Section 2.06.2 of the zoning ordinance requires that front yard setback is the average of homes within 200 feet in each direction. The required is 34.60 feet. The existing and proposed is 24.50 feet. Therefore, a variance of 10.10 feet is being requested. Variance B, Chapter 126, Article 2, Section 2.06.2 of the zoning ordinance requires that the rear yard setback is a minimum of 30 foot. The existing is 12.10 feet, and the proposed is 7.4 feet. Therefore, a variance of 22.60 feet is being requested for the addition. Variance C, Chapter 126, Article 2, Section 2.06.2 of the zoning ordinance requires that the minimum combined front and rear yard setback to be 55 feet. The existing is 36.60 feet, and the proposed is 31.90 feet. Therefore, a variance of 23.10 feet is being requested. The applicant is seeking to construct an addition to the existing non-conforming home, a single-story addition on the irregular-shaped lot. If I can zoom in on here, you get a little history digging into this. There was a fence, so actually the front yard is off of Henley, the rear yard is on this side, the side yard is Warwick, because there is a fence that is a 6-foot fence. So that's kind of the basis of where the, figuring out the zoning. So the rear yard is falling on in between this side yard here, the front yard on Warwick or Henley, and the zoom in on this. So the existing is 12.10 feet to the corner. They're trying to set the addition off on the side, so this little portion back here is where the 7.4 feet is being increased for the variance in the rear yard setback. With the combination of the two, front and rear, it doesn't meet the 55 that is required for the ordinance for the combination of the two, and trying to keep the house in line in the front and pulling it back, so the variance for the front yard setback, that's where that's kind of fallen into play. Hopefully that kind of explains the three variances. Do you have any questions?
So, Mr. Zilke, the line of 12 feet or 12.1 feet trying to align with the existing corner is not the rear setback. That's the current non-conforming distance, correct?
Correct.
And the rear setback is what, 20 or 30? 25 or 30?
30 foot.
Right, so it's not that line and that hash represents how much we're encroaching into the rear setback. That's a comparison to the existing non-conforming and the additional non-conformity. The added non-conformity.
Correct.
And then from the front, the setback is 30 or 35? I just can't scroll back.
34.60 feet is
Right,
what
so
is
the over
required.
10 feet is what they need from the front, because the front is encroaching by 10 feet on the front. So if we just took the setbacks on both sides, this addition would be like 10 feet or 8 feet or maximum feasibility.
Correct, but with all the building envelope, when it's all getting figured, there's this triangle. It's almost kind of like, when you put it together, there's
Right.
a lot there.
Right. But if this map, or if this diagram accurately reflected the setbacks as required, there'd be a sliver left for this addition. This implies there's a lot more available than there is, in terms of within the current ordinances. You know what I mean? You're showing 25 from the front, which should be like 35. You're showing 12 from the back, even though it's 7, but it's really supposed to be like 25 from the back. So this is not, these dimensions aren't reflective of what the ordinance allows for. It's based on what the client's asking for and the current nonconformities.
If I'm hearing you right, yeah, the existing is at 12.10 feet.
Right.
Which is here being non-conforming from what's required on the 30-foot rear yard setback. So therefore, and then going down to 7.4 feet for the rear yard, there's a 22.6.
Right, it's 22 feet we're missing, not the difference between the 12 and the 7.
Correct.
Right.
Because, yeah, the existing house is non-conforming by rough numbers, 20 feet.
Yeah, just this implies, because I don't know if it was done by the appellant, but it implies that this corner is the nonconformity. This corner is simply the additional nonconformity off the existing nonconformity.
Correct.
Right, very good. Other questions for Mr. Zilke? Seeing none. Who's coming to speak on behalf of this appeal? Go Lions.
I am. My name's Jeff Eichel. I'm 550 Henley. You correctly identified the lot. You couldn't build a home on that lot if you had to today, based on current zoning regulations, right? So that's why I'm here, and to try to at least share our point of view. My wife, Julie, is with me, to share our point of view about what we'd like to do to put a first-floor primary suite and laundry onto our property. So, Jeff? If you would. That's the aerial view. As you can see, it's very odd to have this really small area back here. It's like 45 feet there, and it's like 80 feet out here. And this lot line here is the one that we share with our neighbor very closely, which happens a lot in Birmingham, right? Fortunately, we get along really well. And that's what's happening there. So, next one, please. So the objective here is to add this first floor primary suite and laundry for daily living on the first floor. I just note that the laundry's in the basement, the master suite is upstairs, and there's a 24-inch door to the half bath on the main floor. It's like, reflects a lot of Birmingham homes, and what we're trying to do is modernize that. So in response to the requirements in the statutes, the practical difficulty in our case is the current zoning regulations preclude any reasonable addition to property because the existing home is already non-conforming, as you correctly pointed out. The hardship is it eliminates the ability for us as the owners to utilize the property, meet what I view as very legitimate current and future health and safety needs. I will note that I lived there about a year and managed to fall down the stairs, so I'm very focused on this from a safety perspective. Public interest, the orientation of the home is on this irregular lot. It allows the addition to harmonize with the neighboring homes, in my view. Lots of green space on my lot, as I'll show you in a moment. The one area with a setback less than existing, and you're right, it is I'm referencing off the 12.1 that's there today because nothing could be on the property that didn't have some type of variance as it exists. It's immediately adjacent to the detached garage my neighbor has. I think that's kind of a key point here. The immediate neighbors have both indicated support. I have letters attached and included in my presentation. We are active initiators and participants in neighborhood events, as I detailed in my homeowner letter. Substantial justice, from my perspective, the Birmingham and more specifically Poppleton Park are destination locations for us. 3 of our 5 grandkids live half a mile away. We really want to make this our permanent home and make sure it meets our long-term aging in place requirements, and as I mentioned before about the health and safety. So let's go ahead. The home's 65 years old, non-conforming. What we thought we'd do here is just quickly share with you, we looked at a lot of different options in terms of trying to put something together here that would make sense, right? First, we looked at just a traditional rectangle shape. How much could we put out into the lot and have it all conform? And it was about 18 feet wide, and it was using the 12.1 setback. So that clearly wouldn't work for what it is we have planned, which is, Jeff pointed out, is a very modest one-story addition. No basement, no upstairs. This is really just to get us on one floor. We looked at extending the front of the addition out to match the front of the garage, but as you saw, we ran into conflict with the front of the house. We were told that, we understood anyway, that the front of the house would be more of a problem than anything else because we're getting too close to the street, so we discarded that plan. So we came to this plan here that we have more space at the rear of the house. We added a bit of a foyer cut in to transition from the house to the addition that met the current 12.1 variant or setback that's in place today. We added a rectangular structure in line with that same 12.1 rear setback in most all respects. And the southwest corner of the addition structure is a little less where the 12.1 setback is at the point where the three lots converge. I'll show you a picture of that along with the letters of support from our neighbors I mentioned. Those are the neighbors, and this is the Freunds. They front on Warwick Street out here. This is their detached garage. This is their home up here. And that lot line there is very tight, as you can tell. There's the 12 feet right there, and that's their driveway right immediately on the other side. The Glaziers live over here, and they're at 510 Henley Street, and their property, their building structure would actually still be, after the addition was done, if it was to be approved, 42 feet away from our home. So actually quite a bit of room from some standards in Birmingham. Okay, next chart, Jeff. Thanks. And this is actually a picture of it, right? This is the garage that they put up. You can see there's no windows we'd be getting in the way of, and that is where the addition would go out in here. And this is the property where it all comes together, where the three lots converge, as I say, and this is the lot on Henley Street. So there's a nice large area here which where we'd like to put the addition. Next chart, please. I won't go through the setbacks again. I think Jeff covered that. I will just say this is the area that we were looking at in addition to the 12.1 that's already in place, which is there today. And that's what we're just trying to do. We're trying to basically take it across like this. That's the best I can do is hold on to what I've got and try to put an addition in here. And then we made the decision to request this as an additional variance, recognizing this is the detached garage that's right here, and this is basically a dead space in our properties where the properties converge, and the neighbors are supportive. Next couple charts simply are the elevations, which I mentioned before. What I do, this is a pretty modest addition that we're requesting and looking for support on. Go ahead, next one. And this is just the rear and side elevations. You can see this is the little kick out that we have here. It's 6 foot out from the wall out to the west, and then 5.5 feet back, and that allows us to make the exit out of the house at that point and then enter into the addition and maintain that 12.1 distance at that area because it's on that diagonal line. Next, please. And this is just what the existing is. Okay, let's wrap up. Appreciate your patience, folks. This is the view from Warwick. This is our neighbor there, the Freunds. This is that really tight line, the fence that we share. And this is our unique little sidewalk that we have. And what I really put this in here for is to show you all the green space that's still in that lot. I know I bought all this green space because I mowed the lawn myself. Next. This is, oh, yeah, there you go. This is our home, recently resided with Hardy Board. And this is the Freund's standalone garage. This is the neighbor's property over here, over on Henley Street. Again, lots of room in there. Please, next one. And that just wraps it up to show the large area that we have here of green space to the west of our lot and where the three lots actually converges right here. And that's it for me. I hope that was helpful. We appreciate your consideration of our request. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Sure. So I guess one of the questions I have, and I'm sure the board members all have questions. So this little bump out that you have at 12.2, because your existing is 12.1, is really about how you enter into this primary suite, right? You just want to
Correct.
enter at the end. You don't want to interfere with furniture placement. So a lot of those things are dictated by, you know, how you want to use the space. You know, and again, I'm not here to design how you do this, and I'm in the building industry, but personally, have you considered an elevator as an option to allow for transition through the home and using the home without needing a variance so that you didn't have to go downstairs? Is that something that was considered?
No, I did not. I did not consider an elevator, no.
Just curious. Board members, other questions for the appellant? Mr. Cohen?
Yeah, one of the things we always struggle with is the existing conditions you have, which are non-conforming, and then you're making them worse. So you mentioned this is a modest addition, and to me, this is a massive addition of a, you know, 30-foot-long primary suite. It's enormous to me, you know, in relative to the scale of the house and the existing primary suite and so forth. And so my question is, you could do a lot of things to, you know, cut the corner like you did with the entrance to make this a more, what I would think, modest suite in proportion to the rest of the house. Was that considered? You know, a 20-foot-long master suite is...
Again, well, you want me to answer?
Yeah, I mean, like, you could eliminate that whole corner if you just made it, to me, modest. You know, to me, this is
It's
out
600
of
square
proportion to
feet.
the rest of the house.
You think, oh, okay. It's 600 square feet. The house is 2,600 square feet. Is that 20%, 25%? If you're putting an addition on? But that feels modest to me. But I guess it's all in the eye of the beholder on that. But that was this is the kickout we looked at here. You asked me if I considered, like, putting a wall in that's on an angle? Is that what you were asking, that I stay within the 12-foot that I had before? Because the
Yeah, I
builder,
mean, if you
the
bring
architect
that
didn't
line,
like that at all.
If you bring that line across the back of your house, like all these corners of the bay window, all those corners all line up, and now you're pushing your shower further out and making the nonconformity even worse.
Yeah.
If the whole thing was moved in or cut in and, you know, just proportions, you know, a 22-foot-long walk-in closet, you know, move a couple feet here or there. I'm just asking, was that considered so you weren't making this nonconformity even worse?
Yeah, we had several renditions. We went through the architect. He's 3X's cost on we've had here as we tried to put this together. You know, we wanted to come up with something like, you can notice that the things here, the 3-foot doors, the no door, no sill on the shower, all these things to make them barrier-free.
Sure.
As we age in place. And those take up space. And that was one reason we made this house has a 24-inch entrance to the bathroom. So it's a substantially larger space so we can get in and out if there ever is a wheelchair or something like that. So we did look at that. But no, we ended up looking at an addition between 550 and 600 square feet from the very start because of what we're trying to put in it. This has a laundry in it as well, right? Because we're trying to avoid the basement laundry.
Sure.
It's got the master bedroom as well as the bathroom that's there substantially to make sure my wife has a nice tub to soak in. Right now, that tub upstairs is, as she calls it, a lap tub. It's about this high. It's made for kids.
Sure.
So anyway, that was the reason that we looked at trying to put together something, and I'm sorry if I used the wrong term. To me, I thought it was fairly modest. I wasn't putting a basement in. I wasn't putting it upstairs in. I'm not grabbing for every square foot. I'm only grabbing for what I think would make this house livable to me on one story, full stop. And that's really what I was trying to do because of the affection we have for the location. That was our goal.
Please, Mr. Canvasser.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wrestling with this one a little bit because we historically do not like to enlarge pre-existing non-conforming uses. Now, there's no question that this is a uniquely shaped lot, and there are features that are inherently unique to this lot. But one of our factors, and I've heard a lot about why this will do substantial justice to you and your wife, and the proximity to your family, which are all understandable. But the test is the granting of the variance will result in substantial justice to the property owner, the owners of the property in the area, and the general public. So at some point, somebody else is going to own this house. And so we try, this isn't a popularity contest. It's great that your neighbors are in favor of it, but we don't really look to that. We look to the test, what's in our ordinance, what we're required to find has been satisfied. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the substantial justice piece as to why this is good for the entire neighborhood and the general public at large.
I think that question, in terms of a home, a personal home, has to get to the people that live within it. And you just tried to denigrate that by saying other people are going to live in it.
Well, no,
I live in it today, right?
No, I understand that, but that's- sorry to
but that's what makes it special in terms of the neighborhood. It's like my wife has started the Ladies of Poppleton, where they get over 150 ladies together and they have community.
Right, but-
Okay.
No,
Want
but
me to answer it?
just the ordinance is what we have to go by. It's not what I feel. It's not what I look at. It's what the ordinance sets forth and what we have to find has been satisfied
Okay.
in the application. And it specifically says the owners of the property in the area and the general public. Because, we've had people come here with horrific illnesses and health issues and wanted variances. But again, that's a part of the test, right? It's what's unique to the homeowner, the property owner. But also, why is this going to result in substantial justice to the general public? Because when you do move, when you do leave this house, there is now a larger non-conforming use that somebody may not have the same needs and wants as you. So, not to get into why the people who pass the ordinance use this language, but that's what we have to look at. So that's what I'm asking is to talk about how this benefits the general public.
I think it makes if you're talking about the general public, the future owners, which I'm really not concerned about right now personally, but if you talk about that, I think it makes the home very, even more desirable from the standpoint of living in it in the future. I think it certainly doesn't denigrate anything in the neighborhood. I think it would look very nice on the spot. There's plenty of green space. I'm just thrown off a little bit by your questions when I look at some of the large homes that are put up in the state, in our city, where we take down all these existing homes, and we're trying to add on to existing homes as opposed to destroying them and putting up these what we call McMansions. I think the people in my neighborhood view that as substantial justice from the standpoint of having sticking with the original format and adding to it, as opposed to taking it down and building all brand new. We have lots of examples of that in Poppleton Park where that's happened. I'm not quite sure how that ever they seem to use up every square inch on the lot. I'm not sure how that works, but that's not for me to answer today. But from a substantial justice standpoint, I think we bring that to the neighborhood when we add on to an existing home as opposed to take away from it and tear it down.
Mr. Reddy.
So, as my colleagues have mentioned, sir, one of the things that we have to look at is, okay, we're bound by the ordinances, and when we grant a variance, there has to be particular unique circumstances. And a lot of times we get older homes like yours, like the house I live in, it was built in 1926. These are older homes, and what we generally like to see is, if it's existing non-conforming, that you don't exacerbate that particular issue, making it worse, as would happen in this case. So the question I generally like to hear the appellant's answer is, have you explored maybe building over the garage, things like that? While I understand it's not ideal and it's not perfect, it would give us a better opportunity to say, okay, this is existing, non-conforming, and he's not making it any worse.
One of the things we did look at was just, well, not building over the garage because we're putting a first floor on, but actually using the garage as our master bedroom, right?
Okay.
Trying to use that.
That's a
But then
prime example.
we'd have to come out farther towards Warwick, and we'd have to put up then a standalone garage on the other side of the house where I was trying to put the addition to our home now, if I was going to have any garage at all, right? And obviously, if you want to age in place, you don't really want to be outside in the snow. So that would be a requirement, you have to put that up there too. So we ran into that issue. And I can't remember what it was, but I think we'd even talked about that at one time, what the issue was with that plan. But there was an issue with it. We'd have to construct a new garage over to the far side, the west side of the property. We rang everything out of this thing that we could. Am I hearing you right, saying that your biggest issue is the fact that 12.1 that's right there off of that to the neighbors right there is, and we're extending beyond that 12.1, is that where the sticky point is? Are you able to articulate that for me?
I guess what I hear the board members saying, and I haven't commented yet, waiting for the rest of the board members, is yes, first of all, extending an existing nonconformity, even in line with the 21, even in line with the front, isn't necessarily a given. As you mentioned, your lot does narrow on that side, so those nonconformities look worse or impact differently than how it's centered on the property. And it is a substantial increase in the width of the home into this corner. I'm slightly concerned, I mean, there is that existing garage of your neighbor who you're obviously friendly with, but if you had this 7-foot setback off the corner and that garage wasn't there, your neighbor wouldn't be able to build the garage. Is that correct?
It all depends. I'm not sure how wide that lot is. So it's the 25%
Right.
away from the house. And I think to answer Jeff's question, when he explored doing a detached garage, the width of that lot, it would have been substantially away, it had been further away from the neighboring property. That's what another sticking point would do.
There's a very strong possibility that the garage that's currently there, if you had your variance approved, would not be able to be built in the future. And it also means that it would impact what the next neighbor, not the neighbor that likes you, has no intention of, your neighborly neighbor has no intention of doing anything different, but the next person that buys that home could be impacted by the fact that we approved your structure the way you're asking us to allow your structure, because you're 7 feet from the lot line and there's a minimum distance between structures. So you could impact your neighbor, and we would be responsible for not considering that in an approval.
So if his garage, which he's built 4 years ago, was destroyed somehow by a tornado,
Correct.
and he had to rebuild it, he couldn't.
Potentially could not, correct.
Probably destroy mine too, and then we'd be right.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to build your house because it's not conforming.
That's a what if.
There's some other questions, but I do want to support my colleagues in that I think what you've designed for you and your wife and your family is an ideal scenario. The lot doesn't allow for it, but I agree with you. You're doing your zero threshold shower. You're having a generous tub. Everything's on the first floor. You're making sure that when you come into this room, you're not coming through the center of the living room. You're considering a generous size, 18 by 13 master suite or primary suite with a 21 or 22 by 6 closet. This is an ideal scenario. The problem is your lot doesn't allow for this ideal scenario. So that's the challenge. We're not questioning what you're building. I think what you're building is amazing. And I think why you're doing it and the proximity to your family, my kids don't live in Michigan. I wish I had a position where my kids were half a mile or a mile away. All those things aren't something we can consider, but the point is what you're building is perfect and ideal. It's just your lot doesn't allow for it, and we're here to enforce an ordinance. We can't change the ordinance. That's the city commission. We have to look at the criteria, look at what's allowed. We have to, and then if we allowed, let's say for your variance, and everybody we told no when they wanted to exacerbate their nonconformity would come back and say, why them, why not us? We want to sue the city. Again, making this up, but all these things are potential. So we have to be consistent in our decisions and see you guys, no matter how much we like you and your presentation and the confidence in the way you're presenting it, we have to consider the city as a whole and how we're empowered and how it impacts your neighbors, your future neighbor that isn't your current neighbor, and the person that buys your home that has more nonconformities, even though not relevant to you. I don't know who that person is. I don't really care about them, but there's some future Birmingham resident. So just so you understand, because you asked, what are we thinking?
Yeah, and I think it's key that I understand that you're telling me that if I live within the, maybe you're not telling me this, but I'm asking, let's put it that way, that if I stayed within that existing 12.1 setback, this would get a different point of view?
I think it would be seen differently, but I don't know that it'd be approved. So when you hear like the previous people that were in front of you and they had nonconformities, they stayed in line with the existing structure. So as Mr. Reddy said, I have a nonconforming wall of 2 feet. That's on the first floor only. I'm going to build over it, or I'm going to build under it, and I'm going to stay within that. You're saying because I'm 12 feet from the lot line, I want to add another 20 or 30 feet of being 12 feet from the lot line. That's a major, major difference than just saying, my house is a single-story ranch, I'm non-conforming, and I'm going to build over that ranch, not change the footprint, but be non-conforming. You're not asking for what the two people prior to you asked for. You're asking to build outside the box of nonconformity and create another structure that's non-conforming, and then the corner of it is more non-conforming than I'm currently at. And I'd like to say, I believe when the city makes these ordinances in order to have these non-conforming houses, I think their goal is to say, live in it, expand it, make it beautiful, but at some point, it will have to be new, because they're creating setbacks and perimeters that force it. And I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm not saying I don't. I live in a house that's 25 years old in Birmingham, raised my kids in Birmingham, went to Birmingham schools, but we still have the ordinance to abide by. That's what we're here to do, not to change it. So let me continue with questions. So Mr. Hurt, sir.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. As I look at this, I've been on this board for 13 years. This is by far the worst case scenario for anybody. When you look at this triangular-shaped, allowable piece of this lot, if he were to build on top of this existing property exactly what he's planning here, anywhere on this site, he would still need 4 variances. So no matter what this owner presents to us, we are going to have at least 4. I was trying to figure it out, and there's no way. I don't think this exists anywhere else in Birmingham. I've never seen a site that has a triangular shape that's probably less than 1,500 square feet that can be built on. If we were to, the detached garage, there's nowhere for a detached garage that would be allowed to be built on this. So that's not even like for him to be able to convert his existing garage to a living space and try to find garage elsewhere on this property, and a detached structure would be impossible, because it would be in a front yard on the east side of the building, and it would be encroaching over here. Now, I wanted to ask the homeowner, was there ever any consideration to go on above the second floor or above the first floor? Did your architect ever study that? Because he probably encountered, I'm just asking that because I'm wondering if he encountered the same amount of variances that this one is asking for.
We never considered it. We actually did. This part of the house that's over here, he did say if you wanted to expand your master bedroom, which is extremely modest in this house, like 13 by 14, which I really believe is extremely modest. He said, yeah, you could take over one of the other bedrooms upstairs, extend it out over the garage, and you could do all these things, right? Except that I want a first floor master.
No, but your existing house, you can't do it.
You can't do anything.
You can't. I'm just saying, with that triangular shape, unless Mr. Zilke, if I got this correct, that's a triangular shape that's running underneath lot 41. That's the rear setback. It comes to a point on that's right there and comes back. So anywhere you put, you wouldn't be able to do it without at least 4 variances from us tonight. And then again, we talked about unique circumstances. This is an extremely unique circumstance. I'm sure you're aware of that. Also, I was wondering, you mentioned being cognizant of substantial justice to your neighboring property. If you were to tear this house down and rebuild it,
You could plant grass based on the
you-
variances.
that would also
Based on
come
the
before this board.
requirements.
Substantial, your neighbors don't want to tear their houses down, but if this were to be torn down and they somehow were able to get that approved for a new house, you would substantially reduce the value of their home, a person could say. Not that I'm saying that now, but that's not substantial
Mr.
justice to
Hurd,
the neighbor.
do you have a question, or are you
Yeah,
testifying?
I guess I just wanted to know if your architect had considered building over the top of this.
He did. He did, but we didn't go very far with it just for the reason I said. I really only want to do this if I can be on the first floor.
Thank you.
That's what I'm looking for.
Mr. Johnson, you had a comment?
I have kind of an unusual comment and maybe suggestion, okay, as I've been listening to this and looking at the site plan. And I had briefly looked at this with Jeff before, and we had a really hard time figuring out which was the rear, how did they develop this in the first place? How did they build it? Okay. And I think there's some 6-foot fences, and we said, all right, this was the front. We knew Henley was the front. But this is reminding me of other cases in the city where in the case of an unusually shaped lot, the rear property line, draw a line parallel with the front property line so it's 10 feet wide, and that's where you measure the 30-foot rear yard setback. And I am just wondering if that's what was done here way back when this house was built. Because then wherever that 30-foot rear setback hits the required side yard setback, that becomes the side. I don't know if that's the case, but I think we should sit and take some time to look into that.
Suggesting we adjourn it while the city
yes.
does some,
Yeah.
That's wise.
So is that something you're open to?
I'm not sure I understood all that, but yeah.
He's just saying that-
definitely, Bill.
That potentially, there's another way to calculate what are the fronts, what are the sides. If that's the case, it may increase the setback in the areas that we're questioning, although it's all non-conforming potentially. And if
Right.
that's the case, your variance request would be smaller.
Yeah, sure.
I think it would be in your best interest to postpone to the next regular meeting.
Okay,
Let
yeah.
us look into that.
No, for sure. I'm not trying to push anything here.
And by the way, in the meantime, you have the advantage of hearing how people are commenting. And if for that reason, you want to explore that corner, especially once you hear from Bruce or from Jeff what the real setbacks are, that increasing the nonconformity beyond the nonconformity is one sticking point, not all the sticking points. You might have the opportunity the next month to say, well, I'm going to propose, and people come back and say,
Okay.
if we say no, you can't come back and say, I'm taking 2 feet off of it.
Understood.
But if we're postponing, you could make that choice.
Understood. I appreciate that. I think it's been a fair conversation. I mean, you guys have been good about it. Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Okay, then I guess
So-
we'll postpone.
That was a question. It wasn't a comment.
I think we have a motion from Mr. Canvasser.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, let's see, request number
2432.
2432 to the next regularly scheduled meeting in order to allow the city time to look at the setbacks. I may also suggest, although it's just strictly a suggestion, that the architect, if he's available, or she, whoever it is, be present, because they can certainly speak to what they've looked at, which I think the board may be appreciative of. But
Definitely.
can't force anything, just
No, that's
suggestion.
great. I appreciate your input. I
And on top of it, you heard everyone-
guys do this all the time. I don't. Right?
And on top of you, I think you heard everyone say, did you explore? So exploring an elevator to the second floor, exploring converting the living room to a master suite so that you do less expansions, like all those things, not saying you're going to choose to do those, but hearing that you did every possible effort and this is where you landed is a part of us understanding why you're where you are now.
Okay,
Just something to think about.
very good.
So we have a motion to adjourn to the next regularly scheduled meeting, which will probably make you the first appeal. Do we have a second? We have a second, Mr. Kona. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Having none, you're adjourned till next meeting. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Mr. Johnson, Mr. Zilke, any additional business we need to discuss? Seeing none, In the audience or on Zoom, anyone have any topic they'd like to discuss that is not affiliated with the 3 appeals we heard today? Seeing none, can we call a motion for adjournment?
So move.
And we have a second. Mr. Lee's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned.